Let me ask you something simple but profound. Where does every invention come from? Where does every business, book, symphony, airplane, skyscraper, or fortune begin? Not in a bank, not in a factory, not in a boardroom. It begins in the mind through the power of imagination. Every tangible thing you see around you, the chair you sit on, the phone in your hand, the road you drive, the electricity that powers your home. Each one existed first in someone's imagination. That's not poetic fluff. That's a truth most people overlook because they're too busy chasing the visible and ignoring the invisible force that creates it. Imagination is the workshop of the soul. It's the mental laboratory where ideas are born, tested, refined, and made real. And yet, despite its power, most people treat imagination like a child's toy. They use it once in a while, maybe to daydream, and then they shelve it. But the men and women who rise, the ones who change their lives and often the world, they train their imagination like a muscle. They feed it, they challenge it, they trust it, and they act on it. Here's something I want you to write on your heart. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. You've heard it before, but have you lived it? Because it begins with conception, and conception requires imagination. If your mind is cluttered only with what is, you'll never create what could be. But if you learn to stretch your thinking, to entertain possibility, to paint in bold colors rather than gray facts, you unlock a power that no amount of education or money can replace. Let me be clear. Imagination is not fantasy. It is not escapism. It is not wishful thinking. It is a discipline. It is a skill. It is a tool of creation. Imagination takes what is and bends it into what could be. It allows the mind to travel into the future, build visions, and bring back blueprints for action. Do you know what separates average men from the great? The great ones imagine boldly and then work relentlessly to make those images real. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man with no money, no connections, no fancy education. But he had a vision, a burning picture in his mind of an idea the world hadn't seen yet. He imagined a Machinian engine so powerful it could fly people through the sky. They called him mad, said it was impossible, mocked him behind closed doors. But he didn't quit, because the image in his mind was more powerful than the noise outside it. That man was Orville Wright, and his imagination helped shape the skies we fly in today. So what about you? What idea have you shelved because it seemed too crazy? What vision have you let die because no one else believed in it? What dream keeps returning in quiet moments, waiting for you to breathe life into it? Because here's what I know. Your imagination isn't a luxury. It's a divine gift. And it may be the only difference between where you are now and where you could be. In the next part, we'll explore the two types of imagination, synthetic and creative, and how to use each one to build the life you truly want. But for now, let this settle in. Every great achievement started as a wild idea. Every fortune was once a fantasy. And everything you'll ever become starts first in your mind. In the world of success, most people rely only on what they've been taught. They follow routines, they recite facts, they live by the rules others wrote. And while that may get you stability, it will never get you greatness. Because greatness demands more than memory. It demands imagination. And to unlock its full power, you must understand its two forms: synthetic imagination and creative imagination. Let's break them down. 1. Synthetic imagination is when you take existing ideas, facts, and concepts and combine them in new ways. You don't create something entirely new, you reorganize what's already known. Every time you improve a product, refine a system, or merge two existing methods into a better one, you're using synthetic imagination. Think of Henry Ford. He didn't invent the automobile, but he imagined a way to mass produce it. He borrowed ideas from watchmakers, meat packers, and textile factories and combined them into the assembly line. The result? A revolution in industry. That's the power of synthetic imagination. It's not about invention, it's about innovation. And make no mistake, innovation is profitable. 2. Creative imagination, on the other hand, is something different. This is the spark, the voice of intuition, the unexpected insight that seems to come from nowhere. Creative imagination taps into the unknown. It doesn't just rearrange old ideas, it births new ones. It's where new philosophies, new inventions, new paradigms are born. It's what Tesla tapped into when he envisioned wireless energy. It's what Edison used when he dreamed of a world lit by electricity. This form of imagination is more rare because it requires you to be still enough to receive it. You don't force creative imagination, you invite it. Now, let me be clear. You need both. If you only rely on synthetic imagination, you'll stay inside the lines forever refining other people's ideas. If you only chase creative imagination, you'll drift full of dreams, but without structure. But when you combine the two, when you allow creative insight to lead the way and synthetic organization to build it into reality, that's when you become unmatched. That's when visions turn into blueprints, and blueprints turn into legacy. So how do you activate both kinds of imagination? Here's what I've practiced and taught. 1. Feed your mind constantly. Read, watch, listen, observe. The more raw material you give your brain, the more connections it can make. 2. Practice solitude. Turn down the noise. Creative imagination is often a whisper. It requires quiet to be heard. 3. Ask bold questions. What if? Why not? What would this look like in a totally different context? Those questions spark both forms of imagination and invite fresh insight. 4. Write down every idea. Don't trust your memory. Build a system where inspiration can land and grow. A journal, a voice memo, a whiteboard. Let me give you a truth that shaped the lives of thousands. Imagination is not a childish thing you grow out of. It's the engine of the future, and the elite know how to use it. So let me ask you, when was the last time you let yourself imagine without limits? When did you last allow yourself to dream without demanding logic first? Have you been organizing the past or creating the future? Because leaders imagine what doesn't yet exist, and then they build it. In the next part, we'll talk about the connection between imagination and desire, how one fuels the other, and how you can use both to shape your destiny. But for now, remember this. Synthetic imagination shapes systems. Creative imagination shapes worlds. And when both are trained and trusted, they shape you. The more I've studied success, the more one truth becomes undeniable. Imagination and desire, they walk hand in hand. You see, desire alone is not enough. Many people want a better life. They want wealth. They want freedom. They want purpose. But they never imagine it, never see it, never give it form. And so their desire fades into frustration, then into silence. But when desire is fueled by imagination, that's when things change. Because now, you're not just wishing you're seeing. You're mentally rehearsing the life you want. You're building the future in the only place it can start inside your mind. And here's the key. The mind cannot move toward a blurry picture. It needs clarity. It needs direction. So I ask you, how clear is your vision? Do you see your life 5 years from now? Where you live? What you do each day? Who surrounds you? What impact you're making? Or are you just moving through the motions with no image pulling you forward? People don't realize how powerful the mind is when it believes a picture is real. Athletes use this. Artists live by it. Inventors rely on it. They don't just hope it'll happen. They see it before it exists. And the brain, it responds. It starts to notice opportunities. It connects dots that others miss. It unlocks energy you didn't know you had. Why? Because it's chasing a picture you created with purpose. Now, let me give you a warning. If you don't control your imagination, someone else will. The world will feed you images of fear, of limitation, of what you should want. And without knowing it, you'll start building a life that doesn't even belong to you. That's why I urge you take your imagination back. Close your eyes and ask yourself, what do I want to build? Not what you've been told to want. Not what's realistic. What do you want? See it, smell it, hear it, feel it. Because the clearer it gets, the more real it becomes. In the next part, I'll show you how to turn those imagined visions into concrete action, how to move from mental image to measurable success. But for now, remember this. Desire is the fuel. Imagination is the engine. And once they work together, you become unstoppable. Let's talk about turning the unseen into the seen, the imagined into the tangible, the dream into a result. Because if all we ever do is picture a better life, without action, without structure, without movement, then imagination becomes just a daydream. You see, the true power of imagination isn't in escape, it's in creation. It's not a place you go to hide. It's the place you go to plan, to design, to engineer your next breakthrough. But here's what separates dreamers from doers. The dreamers stay in their head. The doers bring the picture into the world. They take that invisible image and begin building it piece by piece, right, where they are, with what they have. They know the secret. Imagination gives you the blueprint, but it's up to you to lay the bricks. Now I want to talk to the part of you that's waiting. Waiting until it all makes sense. Waiting for approval. Waiting until the idea feels perfect. Let me tell you something straight. Clarity doesn't come before you act. It comes because you act. You imagine the vision, yes. But then you step, you stumble, you adjust, you try again. And with each step, the picture gets sharper. So, don't wait for certainty. Use imagination to spark movement, not delay it. You don't need to know every detail of the bridge. You just need to see the other side and start laying boards. And what happens when you do? Momentum kicks in. Energy rises. Your mind, once hesitant, starts to believe. Not just because you see the image, but because you're living into it. This is what the most successful people on earth understand. They don't just think about the future, they begin building it today. And the blueprint, it comes from inside. Let me leave you with this before we move forward. Every skyscraper begins with a sketch. Every symphony begins with a hum. Every fortune, every revolution, every world-changing invention. It all began with one person and a clear, burning image in their mind. In the next part, we'll talk about creative courage. The willingness to imagine what no one else sees, and to move toward it when everyone else stays stuck. But for now, ask yourself, have you built from your imagination lately? Or are you still staring at the blueprint? Because only one of those leads to legacy. Every bold idea, every world-changing breakthrough, it starts with one person who's brave enough to imagine what no one else dares. That's what I'm going to talk to you about now. Creative courage. Because it's one thing to imagine the life you want. It's another thing entirely to own that vision, when the world calls it foolish. See, we've been trained to play it safe, to follow what's proven, to color inside the lines. And for most people, that training kills their imagination before it ever has a chance to breathe. But the great ones, the ones who rise, they do something different. They trust the image they see inside, even when no one else can see it yet. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it feels lonely. Yes, people will doubt you. But let me tell you something. History doesn't remember the critics. It remembers the creators. The ones who built planes when man wasn't meant to fly. The ones who lit cities when people feared electricity. The ones who chased dreams no one else believed in until the dream became real. Creative courage means this. You don't wait for permission. You don't need validation. You let the fire inside guide you more than the noise outside. You trust that if your mind can conceive it, there's a way to build it. And maybe that path hasn't been walked before. Good. That means you're exactly where a leader belongs. Out front. Now don't get me wrong, this kind of imagination isn't reckless. It's not fantasy for fantasy's sake. It's grounded in purpose. It's backed by action. It's fueled by discipline. But at its core, it's brave. Because you're stepping into the unknown. You're creating where there is no map. You're seeing what others refuse to see, and walking toward it anyway. So let me ask you, what vision have you buried just because no one else believed in it? What idea have you silenced just to stay accepted? What picture have you seen again and again in your mind, but never dared to chase? Because maybe that image isn't random. Maybe it's your calling. And maybe the moment you finally say yes to it, everything changes. In the next part, we'll explore how to train your imagination daily so it doesn't fade. It sharpens. But for now, remember this. It's not enough to dream. You must be bold enough to dream loudly, even if you're the only one who hears it at first. Imagination isn't something you use once and forget. It's not a one-time spark. It's a fire that must be fed every single day. And like any powerful tool, it either sharpens with use or it dulls from neglect. So if you're serious about building the life you see in your mind, you must train your imagination like an athlete trains their body. Daily, deliberately, with purpose. Let me show you how. Start by creating space. Because imagination doesn't thrive in chaos. It doesn't shout. It whispers. So each morning or each night, step away from the noise. Turn off the screens. Close the tabs. And sit with the question, what do I want to build? Let your mind go. Let it wander. Let it paint. Not based on what's realistic, but on what sets your soul on fire. And don't judge the pictures that come. Just observe. capture them. Write them down. Because when you give imagination space to breathe, it shows you things logic can't. Second, consume with intention. Feed your mind with images, stories, books, and ideas that stretch your thinking. Surround yourself with people who challenge norms, not those who repeat the same tired patterns. Your imagination is only as rich as the world you expose it to. So expand your input if you want to expand your output. Third, act on your ideas. Don't just collect visions like trophies. Try things. Build something small. Test your ideas in the real world. Because action sharpens clarity, and results, no matter how small, fuel belief. You'll begin to trust your imagination more, because you'll see that it leads somewhere real. And finally, protect your creative energy. Negativity poisons imagination, so guard your focus. Be mindful of what you allow into your mental space. Don't share your boldest visions with small-minded people. They'll shrink them before they ever take form. Remember, your imagination is sacred. It's the part of you connected to possibility. It's your direct line to the life you could create, but only if you nurture it. In the next part, I'll show you how the greatest leaders in history used imagination not just to dream but to solve problems, build influence, and move nations. But for now, ask yourself, have I been feeding my imagination or starving it? Because the most powerful tool in your life is the one only you can see until you build it. When most people hear the word imagination, they think of children, of fairy tales, of fantasies with no connection to the real world. But here's the truth, they don't teach in school. The most successful people on earth, they're the biggest dreamers, the most dangerous imaginers, the boldest minds in the room, because they understand something powerful. Imagination isn't a distraction from success. It's the source of it. Let me show you how real this is. Albert Einstein didn't stumble into his theories by memorizing textbooks. He saw the universe differently. He imagined himself riding on a beam of light. And from that wild mental picture came one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs of all time. Walt Disney didn't just build a theme park. He imagined a world where adults and children could escape the ordinary, and then he built that world one brick at a time. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't organize change with spreadsheets. He stood on a stage and shared a dream, one that painted a better future so clearly. People could see it, feel it, believe it. This is what powerful imagination looks like in the hands of a builder, a scientist, a visionary, a leader. And here's what they all had in common. They didn't wait for the world to catch up to their ideas. They trusted what they saw inside. And because of that, they reshaped reality. You can do the same. Not by copying them, but by using the same tool they used. Your mind, your inner movie screen, your ability to imagine something better, and then take action toward it. And the beauty is, you don't need money to start. You don't need a team. You don't need permission. You just need the courage to dream again, and the belief that your dream matters. So ask yourself now, if I gave myself permission to dream boldly, what would I build? What problem would I solve? What message would I share? Because the world doesn't change when people memorize answers. It changes when someone dares to ask a different question. In the next part, I'll show you how imagination can help you see solutions where others see obstacles, and how this single shift can give you an edge in business, relationships, and life. But for now, don't shrink your vision to match your surroundings. Let your vision reshape the world around you. Most people, when faced with a challenge, do one of two things. They freeze, or they follow the old rules. They say things like, this is how it's always been done. This is the standard process. This is the only way. And that, my friend, is exactly why they stay stuck. Because problems real, meaningful problems don't yield to habit. They don't bow to tradition. They require imagination. It's not always the smartest person in the room who solves the problem. It's the one who sees what no one else has considered. It's the one who asks, what if there's another way? That's how progress happens. That's how industries evolve. That's how ordinary people leap ahead of the pack. Imagination isn't a soft skill. It's not nice to have. It's your competitive advantage. Let me give you an example. There once was a company losing ground in its industry. They had great products, talented people, but growth had stalled. Everyone in the boardroom kept analyzing spreadsheets, looking at trends, studying competitors. Then one young man stood up quiet, steady, and he said, what if we're asking the wrong question? What if instead of improving what we've done, we imagine something that's never been done? The room went silent, because deep down they all knew that was the conversation they'd been avoiding. Within months, that company launched a new idea. It wasn't polished, it wasn't perfect, but it came from bold imagination, and it changed their future. This happens everywhere. In business, in medicine, in education, in your personal life. Because when you stop accepting problems as permanent and start seeing them as puzzles, waiting for creativity, you become dangerous. You become unstoppable. And here's the kicker. You don't have to be the expert. You just have to be willing to think differently. You don't have to know every answer. You just have to ask better questions. That's what imagination gives you. The space to experiment, to rethink, to flip the problem on its head. So, what problem are you facing right now? A financial wall? A relationship breakdown? A business that's plateaued? Now pause, and instead of asking, what do I do? Ask, what haven't I imagined yet? What if you weren't stuck just uninspired? What if the answer exists, but it needs a different frame? What if you gave yourself permission to be wildly creative just for 5 minutes? You might find the answer was never far away. You just hadn't seen it yet. In the next part, we'll explore how imagination connects to belief and why what you imagine consistently becomes what you experience eventually. But for now, remember this. Problems aren't always solved with logic. Sometimes they're solved with vision. Let me tell you something that will either liberate you or scare you. Whatever you consistently imagine, you begin to believe. And whatever you believe long enough, you begin to live. That's the chain. Imagination fuels belief. Belief fuels behavior. And behavior shapes your reality. It all starts with what's playing in your mind. That's why I say your imagination is the projector, and your life is the screen. If you constantly imagine failure, you train your brain to expect it. If you rehearse disappointment, regret, rejection, you begin to build walls. Shrink your actions, pull back. And eventually, your reality starts to reflect that internal picture. But the opposite is also true. If you imagine winning, if you picture progress, if you mentally walk through the door you want to open, you build belief, not fake confidence, not empty hype. Real inner certainty because your mind has already been there. Athletes know this. Before the big game, they visualize the play. They see the ball go in. They rehearse the movement, the breath, the moment. So when the time comes, it's not unfamiliar. They've already experienced it in the mind. Now let me ask you, how often do you rehearse your goals mentally? Not just write them down, not just wish for them, but see them, feel them, move through them in full color. Because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's vividly imagined. That's why visualization isn't fluff. It's a tool, a weapon, a way to condition your nervous system to act with more courage, more clarity, and more consistency. But here's where people go wrong. They imagine the goal, but also imagine all the ways it could go wrong. They picture success, and then immediately sabotage it with fear. You've got to choose. Are you going to use your imagination to build belief, or to reinforce your doubt? Because it will do either. It listens to you. It obeys you. It becomes the lens through which you interpret everything. That's the real secret of belief. It doesn't begin in the body. It begins in the mind. You've got to see it here before you live it out there. In the next part, we'll bring it all together. How imagination, when trained and trusted, becomes your most powerful ally for lifelong success. But for now, I want you to leave with this. The story you rehearse in your mind becomes the life you live on repeat. So stop imagining failure. Start rehearsing victory. You've reached the final piece of this journey. And if you've followed me this far, then you already know. Imagination is not some luxury for artists and dreamers. It is a tool for builders, for creators, for achievers, for anyone ready to shape their life from the inside out. So let's bring it home. Imagination is the first stage of all achievement. It's where desire gets dressed in detail, where belief takes flight, where the future becomes visible long before it's real. And the truth, I say, you can't see it in your mind. You'll never hold it in your hand. That's not hype. That's not fantasy. That's the very process behind every empire ever built. But here's what most people miss. Imagination alone isn't enough. You must marry imagination with action, with Discipline, with unwavering commitment. It's easy to dream big, harder to act bold. But the people who leave a mark on the world, they do both. They imagine what's never been there, and then they build it anyway. They face resistance, they face doubt, but they keep going because they've already seen the finish line in their mind. They're not wondering if it's possible, they're just figuring out how to get there. And that's the power I want you to walk away with today. Not just inspiration, but activation. You have the ability to design a new reality, to challenge the limits others have accepted, to rise above what you've known, and create what you've only dreamed. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need every answer up front. You need one thing: the courage to imagine something better, and the will to make it real. Let your imagination become your compass. Let it pull you forward when logic says stop. Let it remind you that the greatest power you have is not what's around you, it's what's inside you. So ask yourself now, as we close, what do I want to build next? What have I been afraid to see? What would my life look like if I actually believed in the image I've been carrying inside for years? Because now